In August 2003, Paris fell under a suffocating silence. The city, usually alive with laughter, music, and the hum of daily life, seemed to hold its breath beneath a sky that blazed with relentless heat. The city's usual summer buzz vanished, replaced by a relentless white-hot sun. Cafes that once overflowed with chatter stood deserted, their chairs stacked and doors locked against the oppressive air. The famous Parisian energy faded, replaced by a heavy stillness that settled over every street and square. Streets emptied as the heat pressed down, and the only sound was the constant wail of ambulance sirens. The echo of those sirens became the city's new soundtrack, a haunting reminder that something was terribly wrong. These weren't ordinary emergencies. Emergency services were overwhelmed, racing to save people quietly succumbing to the heat in their own homes. Paramedics worked tirelessly, but the calls kept coming, each one more desperate than the last. Behind closed shutters, a catastrophe unfolded. Families had left for holidays, leaving behind the most vulnerable, many of them elderly and alone. Many elderly, isolated in top-floor apartments, were trapped in sweltering rooms. With each passing hour, the temperature inside climbed higher, turning safe havens into dangerous ovens. With no air conditioning and families away on holiday, the heat crept in, stealing strength and lives hour by hour. Fans were rare, and open windows offered little relief as the air outside was just as stifling. This was not a sudden disaster, but a slow, lonely end for thousands. The city's beauty became a backdrop for tragedy, as neighbors discovered too late the suffering behind closed doors. News reports spoke of record temperatures, but the true horror was hidden from view. Headlines could not capture the isolation, the fear, or the quiet heartbreak that swept through Paris. In the heart of a modern city, people were dying from the simple, brutal power of heat. The 2003 heat wave would become a stark reminder that even the most vibrant cities are vulnerable when nature turns merciless. The deadly heat wave that struck Europe in 2003 wasn't just a single hot day or even a brief spell of uncomfortable weather. It was a relentless, suffocating event that stretched on for weeks, catching millions off guard and shattering records across the continent. This disaster was the result of a perfect storm of weather systems, each one amplifying the effects of the others, creating conditions that were both extreme and inescapable. A massive anticyclone stalled over Western Europe, acting like a giant invisible lid. It trapped heat close to the ground and drew in scorching, dry air from the Sahara, turning cities and countryside alike into ovens. With no clouds to block the sun and no rain to cool the earth, the relentless sunlight baked the ground by day. At night, the heat radiated back from concrete and soil, creating a vicious feedback loop that only intensified the misery. The high-pressure system simply refused to move. For weeks, it blocked any chance of relief from cooler, wetter Atlantic weather, leaving Europe sweltering under an unyielding sky. Even after sunset, there was no escape. Temperatures stayed dangerously high through the night, and cities radiated stored heat long after dark, turning bedrooms into furnaces and robbing people of rest. The human body, denied any real chance to cool down, faced relentless thermal stress. Vulnerable groups, especially the elderly and those with health conditions, were hit the hardest. This lack of nighttime relief proved deadly. What began as discomfort quickly escalated into a mass casualty event, overwhelming hospitals and emergency services across the continent. The persistence and intensity of the heat wave were truly unprecedented. Records tumbled, and the scale of suffering was unlike anything Europe had seen in living memory. It was as if Europe was trapped under an invisible dome, sealed off from relief, with nowhere to hide from the relentless, punishing heat. The summer of 2003 shattered temperature records across Europe. Paris hit 40 degrees, 104 degrees, its hottest ever. Southern France saw 44.1 degrees, 111.4 degrees, a national record. The UK, unprepared for such heat, broke 100 degree for the first time, with London's infrastructure buckling under the strain. Germany, Switzerland, Portugal, Italy, and Spain all saw new highs, with wildfires and melting glaciers as visible signs of the crisis. Even countries used to hot summers were pushed to extremes, with thousands of deaths. The heat wave was a continental disaster, not a local event. It revealed how vulnerable Europe was to extreme heat. The numbers told a story of a climate system pushed to its limits. France suffered the worst, losing nearly 15,000 people in 3 weeks. The elderly, especially those living alone in top-floor apartments, were most at risk. August holidays left many without support. Families, doctors, and caregivers were away. Hospitals were overwhelmed, and morgues overflowed, forcing authorities to use refrigerated warehouses for the dead. The government's slow response fueled public outrage and exposed deep flaws in the health system. Officials underestimated the crisis, and the lack of coordination proved fatal. The tragedy forced a national reckoning about how society cares for its most vulnerable. The 2003 heat wave was not just a natural disaster, but a political and social failure. It left a lasting scar on the nation's conscience. The devastation spread across Europe. Portugal's forests burned in massive wildfires, destroying homes and lives. London's underground became a furnace, and railways buckled in the heat. Germany's rivers shrank, halting shipping and revealing relics from the past. Italy and Spain saw thousands of deaths, with Venice's canals drying and glaciers melting at alarming rates. Switzerland's alpine glaciers melted rapidly, triggering floods and landslides. The heat wave exposed the fragility of Europe's infrastructure and ecosystems. From north to south, the summer of 2003 was a shock to every system. Heat is a silent killer, creeping in unnoticed and breaking down the body's defenses before we even realize it. Unlike storms or floods, extreme heat doesn't make a sound, but its effects can be devastating and widespread, especially during prolonged heat waves in cities. Our bodies rely on sweating to cool down, releasing moisture to carry heat away from the skin. But this natural cooling system has limits. When the air is too hot or humid, sweat can't evaporate efficiently, and the body struggles to keep its temperature in check. Dehydration quickly sets in, thickening the blood and making the heart work harder to pump it. This is especially dangerous for the elderly, young children, or anyone with existing health conditions, as their bodies are less able to cope with the extra strain. As the body overheats, the first warning signs appear: dizziness, nausea, muscle cramps, and fatigue. These symptoms signal heat exhaustion, a clear indication that the body's cooling system is failing and urgent action is needed to prevent further harm. Without relief, the situation can escalate rapidly to heat stroke. The body's core temperature soars, sweating stops, and vital organs begin to shut down. This is a life-threatening emergency that requires immediate medical attention. The brain is especially vulnerable to extreme heat. Confusion, disorientation, seizures, and even coma or death can occur in a matter of minutes if the body isn't cooled down quickly. The damage can be swift and irreversible. In 2003, the lack of nighttime cooling across Europe meant bodies had no chance to recover. Even after sunset, temperatures remained dangerously high, offering no respite from the relentless heat. Many people went from feeling unwell to becoming critically ill in just a few hours. Hospitals were overwhelmed as the number of heat-related emergencies soared, stretching resources to the limit. The relentless heat was merciless, especially for the isolated, the elderly, and those living alone or in care homes. Without support or access to cooler environments, they were left dangerously exposed. The invisible threat of heat became a deadly force, turning familiar city streets into danger zones and leaving a lasting mark on communities across Europe. The disaster triggered public anger and political reckoning in France. Investigations revealed failures in public health preparedness and communication. The result was the Plan Canicule, a national heatwave plan with a 4-level alert system and proactive measures to protect the vulnerable. Other European countries followed, creating warning systems and coordinated responses. Heat was redefined as a deadly hazard, not just a summer nuisance. The tragedy also highlighted the dangers of social isolation. New initiatives aim to strengthen community bonds and check on at-risk individuals. The lesson resilience depends on both infrastructure and human connection. At first, 2003 was seen as a freak event, a once-in-500 years disaster. But climate science soon showed that human-driven warming had doubled the risk of such heat waves. What was rare is now common. Europe has faced record-breaking heat waves in 2018, 2019, 2022, and 2023. The UK breached 40 degrees C in 2022, a milestone once thought far off. The 2003 heat wave was not an anomaly, but a warning. It showed how quickly modern societies can be overwhelmed by climate extremes. The tragedy became a benchmark for our readiness in a hotter world. The future it foreshadowed is arriving faster than anyone predicted. 2003 was a glimpse of what's to come. The memory of 2003 lingers in the sorrow of families and the lessons learned. 70,000 lives were lost across Europe, many alone and unseen. The tragedy taught us that cities can become deadly furnaces and that social bonds are as vital as emergency services. The most vulnerable, elderly, isolated, infirm, were the first to fall. Today, we have better warning systems and plans, but the threat is greater than ever. The question is not if, but how we will respond to future heat waves. The memory of that summer must drive us to action, not complacency. Heat is a lethal force, and we have been warned. The safety of our future summers depends on heeding the lessons of 2003.